ladies and gents, it's Jack here from Peach Guitars on another very happy day for me where I get to spend a few minutes and walk you through one of the finest guitars that we've currently got in stock in the shop. Before I get into the video though, as usual, do us a favour and like this video, comment down below with your thoughts and make sure that you're subscribed to the channel if you haven't done so already. So, as I say, today is another of those days where I have the great fortune of just spending a few minutes with a really fine example of an electric guitar. We've had some real stunners over the past few weeks, and the trend continues. Today I'm going to show you something from our German boutique section. We've got a NIK HUBER Orca 59 model, and it's safe to say that we've seen quite a few exceptional guitars from HUBER already. We've only recently taken this brand on. They've only recently started arriving, and every one of those instruments has been absolutely superb in a very unique and certainly in a way that sets them apart from anything else that we stock. I really like them for that fact. But what I've got here is perhaps going to feel a little bit more familiar to some of the more classic enthusiasts of guitars out there. So if you're into 59 Les Paul style instruments, obviously a lot of people do just gravitate towards Gibson because they are the originators, and that is the sound in a lot of guitar players' heads. But what NIK HUBER have decided to do with this Orca 59 model is pay absolute maximum reverence to that ideal of a guitar design, but to put their own spin on it, unashamedly so. So I'm going to walk you through a few of the features of this guitar that make it stand out, and why I personally think that as a utility instrument and something to simply make music on, this is one of the best alternatives you could hope to find to this 59 treasure. Alright, so it's nothing new in the guitar world to kind of take reference from old designs and modernise them, or at least add on a few more modern spins to that design to make it a little bit more player friendly for the modern day guitar player. But NIK HUBER like to do things in a little bit more of a kind of, I think, restrained and classic way. Everything that they put into their instruments just simply makes it perform as well as it possibly can. I've explained this in the overview of the brand video that I did a few months back, so if you're interested in finding out more of the ethos of the brand, you can check out that video for more information. So the Orca model is NIK HUBER's kind of standardized single cut design, but the 59 introduces a couple of really significant changes that just propel this backwards a little bit, in a good way for a lot of players. So what I'm talking about is the fact that this guitar comes equipped as standard with a Brazilian Rosewood fingerboard. Brazilian Rosewood, as I'm sure a lot of guitar players and enthusiasts will know, is a highly endangered wood that's no longer used in standard production anymore in the guitar world. It was used, though, on a lot of those real classic instruments that are held in such high regard for the fingerboard material. There is something different to it, and it's great that with the 59 Orca model, it's actually a standard option. So you do pay a little bit more for that, but I'm sure any guitar enthusiast will know just how important this is and how lucky you are to find this on an instrument, let alone as a standard feature. So that's number one. The other thing you'll notice is that this guitar is adorned with a few more classic features like Kluson style tuners, more of a kind of traditional finishing option as well. So this is the vintage sunburst. There's also a tobacco sunburst. What this has got is a semi-gloss finish, which is very comfortable. It doesn't have any of the usual kind of stick-ups that you find with certain gloss-finished instruments. It also means that the instrument is very open-sounding because the pores of the wood are just that much more uncovered and exposed to the sounds that you're going to be able to produce with this instrument. So what I mean basically is that it sounds a little bit more open, a little bit more zingy, and really it goes into the design of making this instrument work from day one. No longer do you have to rely on instruments to age for 50 years or 60 years before they open up and sound their best. This does it from day one, and it's largely in part, I think, due to this finishing process that they apply on pretty much all their guitars, but it specifically rings true on a guitar like this, where it's referring to a historical kind of model. So that semi-gloss technique and kind of design that I was talking about on the body also extends up to the neck, and this is where you really notice it, obviously, because it's the thing your hand is constantly in contact with. So being more of an unfinished neck, this feels very worn in, very comfortable, but it doesn't fall into the trap of, I think, the thing that people dislike about relict guitars, for example, is that they just feel like they're worn out. This rather feels like it's worn in, and there's an important distinction there. What this basically feels like is an old instrument that's been looked after, because everything still feels even, there's no uneven wear to it. So it's a very comfortable neck. It's also quite a large neck profile that I really like. So coupled with, this is mahogany by the way, coupled with the Brazilian Rosewood fingerboard, you can actually see there's quite a huge chunk of binding around the neck, and that kind of gives you an idea of how thick this neck actually is. You also get the modern benefit, again one of these under the hood tweaks that visually you're not going to get the hint of, but when you sit down and play it, you realise this has got a compound radius as well. So nothing vintage about that. 10 to a 14-inch compound radius on the fingerboard means that this neck, while being fairly hefty and quite chunky and toneful, is very comfortable to play from top to bottom. Right, moving back down to the body, what you've got here are a pair of boutique Harry Housel 59 spec pickups, which again have featured in a few other NIK HUBER guitars. They sound fantastic. They're really clear, really open, but they still have enough of that traditional heft to the tone when you apply a bit of overdrive to the sound. What I like about HUBER though, and this is kind of the big ringing point for me, the thing I really like about their guitars is that they take all of that old school heritage approach and that mystical vibe that a lot of people refer to. The vibe is there, but the technological advancements mean that this can do so much more than a traditional style instrument, not only electronically, but also just in terms of the way this thing feels and responds. That's also in benefit from the extended scale on this guitar. So what you normally find with a single cut is kind of a 24.5 to a 24 3/4 inch scale. NIK HUBER like to push things forward to a 25-inch scale. So that little bit of extra tension means that the notes ring out a little, in a slightly different way. I think you get some higher end harmonics, you get a bit more clarity in the top end, and you also get a coil split via this neck tone control for both pickups, which means that dynamically this instrument can go everywhere from those really thick driven tones to very clean, very sparkly, and very kind of finessed high-end sort of brighter tones as well. So I've covered the neck, I've covered the electronics. The most important thing, arguably, to most of this style of guitar, the thing most people take note of, is the body. So this has actually got a Spanish cedar wood body, which is an optional extra that we've opted for on the spec of this guitar. Makes it a little bit lighter. I also think it gives it a slightly different sonic curve than mahogany. It's a little bit more of a kind of flat response, which I really like because it means that the guitar maker can instill their own voice and personality a little bit easier than when the guitar tone wood has its own voice in a more drastic way. That's coupled with an exceptional, that's not just my word, that is the word for it, an exceptional curly maple top on this guitar. So it really pops the finish out in a nice way, and it means that this is one of the finest looking instruments of this caliber that you're going to find. And speaking of the body, what I really like about HUBER as well is that they just make these very subtle incremental changes that make it a little bit more comfortable than a traditional body design. You might not be able to see on this shot, but you'll probably see from the pictures on the website, there's a very slight contouring here in a kind of belly cut fashion that actually makes this a hell of a lot more comfortable than you might think. Just that subtle change doesn't really upset the aesthetic of the guitar either, it just makes it a little bit more practical. And you also have that applied to the neck join, which is kind of a standard HUBER feature anyway, to have this slight extra bit of carved away wood and a contouring to the neck heel as well. So it's very comfortable up on the top end, so you can make best use of that flattened radius as well if you want to play on the higher frets. Okay, so that's a run through the spec, which arguably isn't as important as the overall playing experience, and I want to try and convey that as best as I can. I think what you're going to tell from the clips that I've put in this video is that this guitar just is a very musical sounding instrument, and that can't always be attested to the majority of guitars. Each guitar kind of has its own personality and will bring something new out of you as a player, and I think the best guitars are the ones that you don't have to think about that. You don't have to think about adapting to the instrument, it simply adapts to you. Now that sounds like a very corny, horrible guitar world cliche, but it's actually quite true, I think, in the cases of certain instruments. So the combination of all the technological advancements that have gone into this guitar, as well as NIK HUBER's high reverence for what made this original kind of inception of this guitar design so popular and timeless, the marriage of those two things makes for a very worthy instrument that's going to make anyone who chooses this as their primary instrument, I'm sure, very happy. So wrapping things up, this is really an experience that you have to have for yourself, playing an instrument of this kind of level and this caliber. I'm aware that a lot of players out there probably won't necessarily get the opportunity to do so, unfortunately, but that's why I hope this video serves as a little bit of a vehicle to understand what makes something like this so special. And as I said before, if you do want to find out more information about it for yourself and you'd like to be within a shot of purchasing it, then head to peachguitars.com by clicking the link in the description below. So that's it for today. I'm looking forward to the next mega guitar I get to sit down with and share my thoughts on with you. But until that point, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.